The following video is for entertainment purposes only. Nothing in this video is intended to be construed as legal or medical advice. All rituals are conducted by a professional occultist under safe conditions. Use the information in this video at your own risk. Hey everybody, this is DH Thorne here. Well, this is going to be a video that is going to be about the virus, the spooky beer plague that is going on right now, the subject that shall not be spoken of on YouTube without certain disclaimers. So before I go any further, I want to make sure you understand that this video is not meant to be medical advice, legal advice, or anything of that nature. And I already gave that disclaimer, but I'm doing it one more time because I'm sick and tired of YouTube censoring people over this stuff. Luckily, they've backed off a little bit, and I've seen a lot of people being able to comment on it, and it's not so bad. But again, nothing I'm about to say is medical advice. This is all spiritual, okay? So first and foremost, people have been asking me, Thorne, what can you do as a magician? And what can other magicians do about this? Some people have come up front and just said, Thorne, why don't you do a spell and stop the beer plague, make it stop? That's not really possible, okay? Various things have informed me that. It's not a thing where magic would be of much use at this point. This is, as one might call it, a standing stone in the river of time. This is a thing that is meant to happen. It is a birth pain of the next paradigm. And you can't stop the next paradigm from happening. You can influence what shape it takes, but you can't stop it from happening. And birth pains are always going to be something that you either suffer or you just deal with and don't suffer. I'm not suffering. I'm fine. My family's fine. We're safe. Nobody has it. And if we did, we would do everything we could to not suffer. We try to maintain a joyous attitude, a fulfilled attitude about it, and say, this is not going to be the end of the world, even if someone dies, you know. Hopefully that won't happen. Obviously, we're not rooting for it. But you have to understand, mankind has been living in a golden age in the last 100 years. And there's a lot of people who don't get that. You know, the news media, television, movies, they're just pounding you over the head with how horrible the world is every moment of every day. But if you look at every statistic and every metric and every other way of looking at this, humanity's never had it so good. There are less wars, less famines, less diseases, even now, than there's ever been in history before. We are in the middle of a golden age of prosperity, health, and happiness in this world, and we should stop pretending like we're not. That's part of the things that makes us so insufferable in the modern age, is that people just have it in their head that we have it so bad. So this pandemic, this issue, is the birth pain of the next paradigm. Now, the next paradigm can go one of many different ways, and this paradigm is what I'm concerned about most. This is something that I am more concerned about than the illness itself. I'm more worried about what this is going to do to our global economies. I'm more worried about what this is going to do for our personal freedoms. I'm more worried about what governments around the world are going to do in response to this to try to stop it. Because whether you think this is a hoax or not, or some way to usher in 5G or whatever your tinfoil conspiracy is, you have to also admit, even if you don't have one, that governments around the world are going to capitalize upon this crisis to implement new, well, we'll just say self-serving agendas. We'll just leave it at that and let your imagination run wild. So even at the very least, that's going to be for certain, and I'm concerned about that. I look in my own country, in the United States, and we're watching our media, you know, play this very dangerous brinksmanship game where they are willing to do anything they can to make China look good, and make our own government on either side look bad, no matter what. You know, everybody's bought and paid for in this industry, in this world, and it's really difficult if you don't have, I guess, you know, a certain mindset to be able to see through that. You need a certain amount of discernment to see through that. So I'm very concerned. That is part of the next paradigm. What's going to happen? Are people going to wake up and see that the news media is untrustworthy? They have every right to be, but will people finally understand that you can't trust the media just because it's got a jingle and a couple letters before its name? You can't trust the mainstream. You can't trust the side stream, you know, but at least in independent media, you have a chance. chance. You do have a chance in the independent media. It's independent thought, and that is much more healthy. You know, as a Luciferian, I do not trust any form of authority but my own, and anything that takes authority, especially if they try to take that authority, if they try to hold authority over me or over something, I immediately distrust it. I don't care how good it seems. I immediately don't trust it. That means even if there's a politician that I vote for, I don't trust them. I think that they are automatically most likely out to profit themselves and screw me. So I treat them not with contempt, but at arm's length, as an adult with a child who you know that child has a history of lying. That is how I treat the government and every politician, especially the media. So that's part of the paradigm shift that's coming that you have to be aware of. And yes, this is not specifically strictly magical speaking, but it is part of it, because we can, as mages, we can influence that outcome, at least in our subjective experience. We could theoretically do magic to make sure that we end up in a paradigm that we prefer. Whether that paradigm exists subjectively or not, that's anybody's guess, depending upon your view of reality. My own personal reality is, if I do the right rituals, if I do the right meditations, if I have the right mindset, if I connect with my higher self, if I quantum leap my reality into a reality where this turns out to be a good thing, that's what will happen. But I have to, of course, really, really intend to be there. It can't just be my ego doing it. So what kind of magic can we do? I would pretty much put away all hope that you're going to do magic that will just make this virus stop. This virus will not destroy the world. It is not going to be a world-ending plague. This is not what killed the dinosaurs. But it is bad. It's a lot worse than we originally thought, because partially what we thought was based upon the lies of the Communist Chinese Party. And they're downplaying the effects of this in their country. They're acting like they don't have any new cases when they probably have closer to 1 million cases in China than they don't. They probably have closer to 40 or 50,000 dead than they're saying. I don't trust anything that's coming out of China whatsoever. I'm looking at Italy, I'm looking at the rest of the world, and I'm looking at these more transparent countries, and I'm saying, these people have it pretty bad considering, and they have it worse than China does. So that should tell you something. We shouldn't have trusted China's word at all from the beginning. I've never trusted them from the beginning of this. So we're actually looking at probably not 1 or 2%. We're probably looking at closer to 8, 9, 10% fatality rate for those who contract this. Now, this is something, with those of you who are able to watch my Marbas video, which is on BitChute right now, because YouTube, they fucking hard passed on that video. If you don't know the story behind that briefly, I had done a live ritual to Marbas. It was very effective. He gave me some very interesting gnosis, and something I said in that video was construed as promoting harmful activities. And I was, the video was taken down. I was allowed to appeal it, and they manually reviewed it within 2 hours. That's unheard of. And within 2 hours, they affirmed their original decision and took the video down forever. And luckily, I didn't get a content strike, but it was implied that if I continued making these videos, that could happen. So I'm like, okay, fuck you. I'm not gonna do this. In that video, one of the things that came about was Marbas was talking about, I asked him, who's going to die? What's going to happen? He says, many's going to die, many are going to live. And the numbers that I was given, and I was just kind of chanting them, was like, 1 in 10, 3 in 10, 10 in 1, 10 in 3. I'm like, what do these things mean? What exactly do they mean? And I believe that part of that is to represent how cloudy the numbers are and how they would be reported, but that it's ultimately going to be worse than what was originally stated. And I do believe that we are looking at very clearly now that the death toll, the death rate for infection for people who have it is not 1 or 2%. It's not the flu. It's more like something that is not a footnote in history, but a couple of pages in the history books. This is going to change the course of the next generation, period. I don't like saying that, because it's kind of depressing, because I was having a lot of success in things that I've been doing, and because of this, I'm seeing my own self-employment at risk, just because it's hard to convince people to, purchase your books and services at a time when people need to save that money, realistically for the near future. They have to buy things that they need, not my services and books. And I'm not insensitive to that. I think that's important. You should buy what you need, not my books if you're struggling. But it's potentially depressing because of that. Here things are going great, and then this happens, and the world economy takes a dump. But this is going to be a long-term thing. I don't care, even if they came out with a vaccine tomorrow and it was wiped out tomorrow, you're still going to have lingering negative effects for years to come because of this. And if it does continue as I predict in my own work, I do predict it's going to last and it's going to reoccur. And it's probably going to just continue through even part of the summer. I don't see the summer stopping this. If you look in the southern hemisphere where it's still technically, late summer for them, it's not like they don't have cases. So when they're saying the summer's going to make it stop, I don't think so. I think it's going to maybe go a little bit more dormant, but it's not going to stop, and you're going to continue to see this exponential blow up. And until the virus is cured with a vaccine, I think we're going to just continue to see this. So what can magic do? I keep beating around the bush, but I want to make sure I outline the problem and I outline the situation. This is a moment in time, which is like a crucible that's purifying humanity through crisis, through loss, through these things. We're being shown clearly who our friends and enemies are in the powers that be. And unfortunately, the masses, the people at large, don't get it still. They're still mostly asleep. Most people are just still dumb. They're still watching TV, trusting everything the news says. They're still trusting what government says. They're still trusting everything. And I'm not saying that everything they say is a lie. I'm saying don't trust them. Don't trust them even when they're telling the truth. They're still telling you the truth for a reason that's probably not in your best interest. You don't trust a used car salesman with everything they say when they're talking about a car. Why are you trusting the government? This is ridiculous. So this is the outline of the issue, and this is a situation where humanity is being primed, we're being prepared, we're being educated, we're being shown that, our true natures in a way. We're being shown the future in a way. This is the birth pain of a new paradigm, and as we experience this, there's a purification going on, and we've had it really good, and we're going to have it kind of bad for a little while. I don't know if it's going to be Great Depression level bad, but it's going to be bad for a little while. We're going to have a lot of problems because of this going forward, and a lot of people are just not prepared for that in their life. They're not prepared to exist in a world where they can't get their pumpkin spice lattes every other day. They're not ready to exist in a world where they might have to have a garden to make sure that they have food during certain times, where they have to use something other than toilet paper for a little while. People aren't used to this kind of stuff in the first world anyway. And the third world kind of looks at this like, well, here we go again. They're kind of used to it. But we're not here in the first world. And we've had it really good, and that's been a good thing, but it's also been a bad thing because it's created a generation of people who just can't stand difficulties and crisis. We have a very weak generation currently in the last 50 years of people who they've never had real crisis to work through. They've had it easy, and I know some people are going to be very pissed at that. They're going to say, well, I don't have it that easy because I don't have this and I don't have that. I'm telling you, people grew up with a lot less. They grew up with a lot less, and it's. I'm not saying you don't have a right to complain. What I'm saying is that we've had good times, and good times make soft people. Okay, I'm very much a believer in that statement. That good times make soft people because hard times make strong people, and the strong people make good times. So you have this cycle, and this is what we're existing in. We're existing in a good part of the cycle, and we're on a downturn, and this cycle is going to keep going. And no cycles are perfectly repeating. They're Fibonacci sequences. They're golden ratio spirals in which things spiral into new realities. But there's still a cycle going on. There's always good and bad. There's always health and sickness. And we're entering into a period where we might enter a downturn for a while. It's very likely. We kind of need it. We need that forest fire to burn the old wood out so we can have new trees grow. That's kind of what we're looking at. And it's not that bad. We're not looking at like 80% of the world's going to die and all this. But here's the danger. When you have a death rate closer to 10%, you get a situation where our ability to cope with the death rate becomes difficult. And that can actually compound the problem where the death rate will maybe climb higher than 10% if it's true. So what can you do? One more time, let's ask the question, and now let's finally answer it. What can you do magically to help yourself through this crisis? Well, instead of trying to do rituals that stop the virus in the world, to try to stop this freight train coming down the road at you, you need to step the fuck out of the way. That's what you need to do. That's the kind of magic you need to be doing right now. You know, some people have been wasting their energy trying to do rituals and magic and goofy little things. You know, I mean, some of the rituals that I've seen people doing are just, you're sitting there like, you know, just you're burning a candle and you're hoping that that's going to make the, the virus stop. Like I said, you have a freight train the size of a skyscraper roaring at you right now, and you're sitting there with a little candle spell hoping that you're going to be fine. No, that's magical thinking. Let's return to rationality. How does magic work? Magic works via subtle means. Even in thaumaturgical magic, which is miraculous magic, it tends to work in subtle, synchronistic ways. It doesn't usually work in grandiose miracles where someone can say, "Well, I lit this candle and then the I mean, come on, and the spell plague died." Right? No, I don't think so. What we're looking at is a situation where you need to be doing magic to protect yourself and those around you. You need to be using mundane methods. You cannot be ignoring your mundane things. You must, absolutely must, protect yourself with mundane actions of prevention. And following that, you need your spiritual ducks in order, okay? You need to get your ducks in a row. Do you have spiritual protection in the form of spirits who look out for you? Do you have spirits that work with disease and things that have been, that are guiding you, you know? And how are they guiding you? Are they guiding you with magical thinking or with appropriate mundane steps that you can take right now to protect yourself? So what kind of magic can you do? I would work with spirits like President Marbas. I would work with almost any protective spirit to help give you insight. Work with King Balaam, for example. He's very good with divination and premonition, and all of that stuff. You can get, you know, he's not limited to not doing anything with health. He can, of course, give you visions of illness to come and things like that. So definitely be working in that direction. I would also be very keenly working on spirits that have to do with prosperity, because we're about to be losing a lot of prosperity. And I'm going to give you a little anecdote to help you understand what I mean. For the past year or so, those who've been following me, I have become more and more professional in my work, and I've become self-employed in the last month because I've had success in this. I've sold enough books. I've got my Patreon going. It's still minimum wage level, but it's good. And for the last year, I've essentially been working 2 jobs. So I had 2 incomes, basically. I doubled my income just about for a year. And that put me in a place where I was getting ready to buy a home. I had about $10,000 saved up, I don't mind telling you. And I saved this money up with the intention to buy a home sometime this year so that I can finally get out of this impoverished state that I've been in my entire life. You know, just renting from people and on the good graces of others. And I finally put together enough money to bring myself up out of this. And we had this intention to buy a home this year. And just like everybody who has the experience of trying to buy a home, it's a pain in the butt. You go to these houses and they're never as good as they look in the ads. And, you know, you go there and you're like, wow, this place is falling apart. It's going to need a lot of work. The price needs to be slashed. You know, I'm always a haggler when it comes to certain things like homes. You know, my mother used to do real estate, and, you know, her advice to me was always try to get 20-25% off at least off the price. And if there's something wrong with it, don't be afraid to offer half. And I'm like, are you kidding? Half? She's like, no, trust me. Some houses they'll be willing to take half on, trust me. And you can roll that into an improvement loan. So we were looking at all this stuff, and the spirits were giving us such prosperity and such profit and so much advantages. Sorry about that. My phone went off with a message from the school. So yeah, it's a thing where they were setting me up for prosperity. And I thought this was because they're trying to guide me into a home. And so we started looking, and we were having a great time. We felt so invigorated, and I was working so extra hard because I felt like the spirits were showing me house, house, house. I can't wait. And I think there was a plot line, so to speak, where that could have come to pass. I do. But we were working so hard towards it and so happy, and it actually got us through a very difficult winter season, a very difficult Christmas season, because we had this goal to work towards. And I was working with my spirits, constantly trying to ask them for guidance in these things and for extra prosperity. And it was awesome, and it was working really well. Then this beer plague hits, and the prosperity starts drying up, and the homes on the market have dried up. There's really nothing available that would be interesting to me, and I was getting kind of like, what the fuck? Like, am I losing my touch all of a sudden? Then it dawns on me, especially when I realized how serious this could get back in February, and I did my work with Marbas, that I wasn't being set up necessarily to buy a home. I was being set up to have enough savings and enough things so that when this falls apart, I don't have to be out in the public risking myself getting sick, working a regular day job. I don't have to work as a cashier or something to make ends meet. I will have enough in savings so that so long as we don't have a major inflationary issue, I will have enough money in savings that I should be able to weather this storm, even with diminished income, even if my wife couldn't potentially work for a few weeks or something. We wouldn't be suddenly destitute. And I realized that that is the kind of thing that protection, that's the way protection looks when you're a spiritual person, when you are doing things in a guided way with your spiritual forces, when you're doing magic for prosperity and protection. That's what it looks like. It's not going to look like, poof, the virus disappears. Poof, you're suddenly whisked away into another country. Poof, it's some Hollywood level, video game level manifestation. It's going to be creepy, subtle, synchronistic things. So in a creepy, synchronistic way, I've been protected from the worst possible outcomes from this. And that's working with the kinds of spirits that I do and doing various spells and rituals on occasion to help boost prosperity. So the kinds of things you should be doing, I'm not going to tell you specific rituals because that should be up to you to figure out. But you need to be working with spirits like King Persan. You need to be working with spirits like Balaam. You need to be working with spirits like Marbas. You need to be working with, maybe Vine as well. He's very protective. King Paimon, so you can help network with people around you so that you have a security net, so that you have people around you so that you can feel assured that you won't be alone in a crisis. You should be making sure that you have prosperity. You should be doing rituals for money and health and things like that. I would refrain from being too specific in the sense that try not to go by what your ego would want. Go by what your higher self would be guiding you towards. Your higher self doesn't necessarily want you to live or die. It wants you to have the most fulfilling experience you can possibly have. So you need to be asking yourself, what kind of experience am I supposed to be having right now? Am I supposed to be moping at home, doing nothing and depressed because I'm resisting the flow of events in such a way that I'm not living my best life? Or am I using this time to my advantage? Am I finding a way to use this time to educate myself, to become more spiritually minded, to become more aware of reality? And one of the beautiful things that I'm seeing, it's actually kind of cool because I think a lot of people right now, because of what's going on, there's a lot of people who've never had real time off in their life. Maybe they've worked ever since they finished school. Maybe they've worked ever since, whatever. They've gone to college and they went and they got their career going, and they've never had more than a few days off. Maybe they had a vacation a week here and there, but nobody's looked at a month or two where they don't have to work. And I'm looking around, I see people walking with their fucking family. Who walks with their family, right? I'm seeing people walking with their family around town, around their neighborhoods, and they're I found that even when I go to the supermarket, people are more inclined to say hello than they've ever been. Now, I live in an area where that doesn't happen. Like, I've spent vacation time in towns where people will talk to you. Total strangers. They'll just chat you up while you're trying to shop for your groceries. And my wife and I are like, what? Leave us alone. We don't want to talk. We're New Yorkers. We don't talk to each other. People are talking to each other, and it's really weird. And people are showing a certain level of concern for strangers. But at the same time, they're like, social distancing, stay over there, don't talk to me, by the same token. So it's really interesting. And I think one of the positive things that's coming out about this is people are finally seeing what life can be like when they are not in this rat race where they have to be on this treadmill all the time trying to make it. They're seeing what it can be like to just live a much more frugal, simple life. You don't need to have the $1 million home and the $60,000 exotic car. You don't need all this crap. What you just need is to have some comforts, a few comforts to make life worth living, and then something to be passionate about to drive towards. That's how I live my life. I mean, don't get me wrong, if you see how I live, I do have my hobbies and my habits. I have my sword collection, my guns. I have things that I find interesting that are expensive, yes. My computer stuff, all of that. But if that all winked out of existence tomorrow, so long as I had the ability to continue practicing my spirituality and find some way to experience those other hobbies, even if I had to just play with wooden swords or something, I'd be fine. My ability to adapt to these things is better than average. Other people can't, and they're being shown right now who those people are and And interestingly enough, people are coping pretty well, in my experience. Everybody that I interact with, nobody's saying how miserable they are stuck at home. I think everybody's secretly pretty happy right now about being home. They might be worried. Yeah, I know a lot of people who are scared, but there's quite a few people who are just comfortably at home. So what you need to be doing is magic and ritual that is not based on fear. Don't do things where you're scared, I'm going to get this illness and I'm going to die. Instead, be doing ritual work that works with spirits or with magical intentions that are for fulfillment of your higher purpose through this situation. And so that your struggles are only in line with what you can tolerate. And they will be, generally. It's only when our ego gets mixed up in everything where we decide that our situation is too hard for us and we start to suffer for it. If we look at these situations as things that we will get through and we will be okay, that's sometimes delusional. Sometimes you don't end up healthy, but you can still end up in a position where you're not suffering the outcome. But again, prosperity magic, protection magic, and health magic. You want your health boosted right now. You want your prosperity protected, and you're going to lose some. I'm telling you right now. I hope you're ready for it. Prosperity magic, protection magic, and health magic. Those are the things I would focus on. And again, good spirits would be President Marbas. You have King Person for your wealth and your prosperity. Of course, you have to understand King Person's not going to be just showing you money. King Person, he gives you hidden treasures, and hidden treasures include non-financial things. That includes, oh, you know what? I have this really good hobby that I can use, to make me happy right now. These hidden gifts in your own life, excuse me, that he will show you. So King Person's awesome with that. But yes, financial as well. You need to be socially networking right now because, if everything falls apart, you want to have a safety net of people that you can rely on, because the government's not going to be able to handle this if it becomes big enough. It's just going to be, people are going to fall through the cracks. So you're going to need to rely on one another. I highly recommend, actually, for mundane advice, look up people's videos about surviving the Great Depression. There's this really cute old lady, I can't remember her name, but she has videos about, like Depression era living and the kinds of things they would cook and what they would do to save money. Look up stuff like that right now. Be prepared going forward. Instead of seeing this as, oh, doomsday preppers, you're all a bunch of paranoid weirdos. No, we're not. Some of them are, yes, but a lot of people are just sensible. We say, hey, you know what? It's happened before. It could happen again. Let me make sure I have a little bit extra food in the pantry. Let's just do that. Even as a poor person, I could lose my job and be out of work for a month, and it might take 2 or 3 weeks for unemployment to come in, and I know I need some food in the pantry to make it through that. So there's nothing wrong with having a little bit of extra spared up. You need to start learning this, because I know this is unfun to think about. Everybody wants to hear about how magic can snap its fingers like Thanos and all of a sudden everything's going to be fine. It's not going to happen. Get it out of your head. Stop with the magical thinking. Stop asking me, Thorne, why don't you do a ritual to fix this? I don't think it's possible. If someone can do it, they're not doing it. Okay? It's that simple. On the other hand, there's an exception to every rule. It is possible to do magic ritual for your own life, for your own subjective experience, to quote-unquote quantum leap into a reality where the suffering is minimized or maybe even zero, where the outcome is such that you don't have to worry about your future. That, I think, is entirely possible, but that's different from changing the world. I'm not trying to change the objective world in terms of its virus. I'm trying to change my own subjective experience of this world, so that based upon what's happening right now, I exist in a world where I am fulfilled to the utmost. That is what I'm going for, so that my own personal power and divinity is real. Remember, I may be a divinity, I may be God, but I am not your God, I'm my God. As my God, I can't change your reality, which means I can't necessarily change all of objective reality to suit me, but I can change my own experience of it, using magic, using things to manifest what I desire within my subjective, objective sphere. So hopefully this helps you guys a little bit without confusing you too much. Either way, I hope you're well. Give me a like, give me a comment, share this video, check out my books, check out my Patreon, support me whatever way you want, and hopefully we'll talk again soon. Mind the shadows.